Good evening to all the office bearers of the IBA, my colleague Dr. Karad, and also I'm going in the probably wrong order, but um, Secretary, Department of Financial Services, and also all the executives of banks who have come here, being members of the IBA. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to be with you once again. It's always been a very meaningful interaction when I come for the IBA meets. I know this 75th meeting that you're holding today of the annual general meeting coincides with India celebrating 75th anniversary post-independence. I've observed this even earlier once, that the IBA's trajectory is very much aligned with Free India's uh, trajectory. And as a result, most often, either by default or by the choice of the IBA, you end up serving the nation, keeping yourself aligned with national priorities. And therefore, there's always been a synchronization of banking functions and also government policy. So there's enough and more reasons to recollect how that path has helped India move up and grow, particularly in the last 10 years, I would think, in spite of all the challenges that you have faced. Because of various reasons, I'm not going to have to give a political explanation for it, but I'm glad today we are meeting at a time when most of you all have come out of the difficulties that you were facing, and as a result, today you are able to stand up on your own and be counted for your strengths over the decades. After all, due to extensive networking, spreading of your wings, diligent hard work of your members and of your staff at all levels, banks in India have grown to the sizes that they have grown today. But even with all that said, and I appreciate particularly the work that was done during the pandemic, I mentioned it in my last meeting, I wouldn't hesitate to repeat here and now again, that participation with a sense of dedication at all levels in each and every one of the banks has become, I would think, a golden certificate given by the people because of the dedication with which, at every level, banking, staff, officers, and everybody, in spite of the challenges of the COVID-19 pandemic, were at the service of the nation. You went to the villages, you delivered on, to the customers who couldn't come to the branches and so on. And some of your staff had also got afflicted by COVID. They couldn't come out of it. And I always have a word of prayer for all of them who lost the breadwinning member of the family who was a member of the IBA as well, in the sense working in a bank. So whenever I meet now post the pandemic, I have a sense of gratitude towards banks in India because you not only worked through the pandemic, but also made sure the amalgamation processes were so undertaken without much of a friction. Banks were merged because we wanted larger, more optimal and efficient banks. All those exercises were also undertaken during the pandemic. So you have gone through a test of the fire, if I can use that word, took up many challenges, amalgamation, COVID pandemic, keeping your staff together, and post that also the demand which the government were giving forward guidance saying we need more credit in the market, go reach out to the customers, also go to the far-flung areas of the country. You did it all. Today the economy is looking up, and you also are seeing figures which are coming out. You are clearly seeing the health of the bank, which you yourself are reporting. I don't need to re-report to you. The restoration of the health of banks has been so recognized. People are saying today Indian banks are up and healthy and they are at their best. So all this could not have been accomplished but for the diligence with which all of you all have worked, and my word of appreciation in this meeting of the 75th Annual General Meeting. There are several data that I can share with you. I can also say banks have reached this much, NPAs have come down by so much, liquidities spread so much. I'm not getting into that discussion because I'm sure all of you all have been talking about it, reporting about it, writing about it, and the Secretary DFS, who should actually be keeping an account of it, is fully seized of it. So I'm not going to be getting into that. But what I need to talk to you at this stage, I think, particularly when we are celebrating India's 75th Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav, and also where the Prime Minister is very clear that for the next 25 years, which he constantly refers to as the Amrit Kal, Amrit Kal has taken off at a very, very positive note. If at this stage, when we are planning for the next 25 years, India has reached the 5th rank in the world from 11th rank that we were in 10 years ago, just the auspicious beginning that we've been waiting. And that auspicious beginning has already arrived. We are talking of an economy which is the 5th largest, and having moved to the 5th position within a matter of 10 years, we have so much and more to do. So the Amrit Kal and the banking industry to serve the Amrit Kal is going to have to occupy all our minds. It is for us to see how best we can lift ourselves to meet with the aspirations of a growing India. If from the Red Fort, Prime Minister says by 2047 India can be, should be, and we wish to be the developed country that we so deserve to be, I think the biggest role to contribute in this path, and for this path, for us to reach it by that time which all of us hope to be, it is the banking sector which has to make a big contribution. And there's no denying that banks are the biggest catalysts. You are the ones who are going to facilitate businesses to run, agriculture to be comfortably placed, small businesses to be given adequate capital, understanding the nature of requirement of capital by the MSMEs, corporate sector to be supported, but supported with your prudential decisions in particular place. Good commercial decisions to be taken by the merit of the matter rather than by anything else. Professionalize your decision-making boards. There's no way in which banks can any longer, and I understand, I'm saying this even as you've already understood it. There's no way banks can any longer run with a crony kind of a background. This government, particularly under the leadership of Prime Minister Modi, has ensured there are no instructions given to the banks. There are no direction about fund him, not fund so-and-so is not given at all. You have recognized that, and we have also appreciated that professionalism is what you are all moving towards. And we need to take that at a far faster pace. If for 25 years, especially when India has to grow at that kind of a speed, it is you, the catalyst, who will have to be empowered. And I'm sure the DFS is conscious of that aspect of what we need to do to let the banks be. Ask them to carry on with their functions as they should. And engage professional services, professionals who can come and run it in a far more purely banking perspective in mind. So with all that in mind, when we are moving towards greater professionalism, greater independence, greater standing of the Indian banks, which is already proven, I would thank the former Secretary DFS and now also the current Secretary DFS, who actually had gone through quite a difficult phase with me in particular, where I kept saying, no, I'm not giving any more capital to the banks, let them go to the market, raise funds on their own because they are fine enough in their health. It looked as if I had been very difficult. I like to believe so. I'm sure you still think that I was difficult. But it helped. Haven't you all realized that you went to the market and you could raise resources for yourself? You don't need the government to, have that approach of my bap, please give me. You've proven yourself. And to add to your strength, monies which were locked up in accounts which were declared fraudulent. The law enforcing agencies are making sure that they give the money back to the bank. The assets have been put on auction, monies have come, and there are times I've called Dinesh Karaji to say, please go ahead, put the share out and get the money, put it back into your account. Don't wait for a golden day. This money has come, that which was almost given up, saying we may or may not even get it. Those monies have come. We shall pursue that every bit. No fraudulent account will be left without being taken to the court. We shall get that money back to you. Because you are the custodian of those monies. And fraudsters have no place in this country, and banks shall not suffer for the monies which have been taken away by the fraudsters. And that I can say with confidence because in the last few years we've done it. I'm not talking out of the blue. So if that is the kind of support with which we want to work with the banks, both public sector, private sector on a different scope, I'd certainly love to see banks now plan for the Amrit Kal. We're in it already, we should have planned earlier, but never mind, now is the time. 5th in ranking economy, your money is coming back, you on your own have built your health up in such a way that you're able to go to the markets to raise resources, you've got the opportunity now to get more professionals into your management, then what best time to think about what you want to do the next 25 years? And the next 25 years, I would think you will have to have strategies to meet up to the aspirations of the younger population. They shall be about 60% of the total population by the year 2030, youth of India. You will have to make your portfolios such attractive ones that even the young would think there's so much for me in the bank. You'll have to articulate it in such a fashion. I'm not saying that you will have diametrically different portfolios. After all, banking has its own prudential sense. But are you making yourself accessible to the youth of this country? Today, women are coming out in very many different ways and doing businesses. Are you communicating with them? Are you offering products for them? So the next 25 years, I've just indicated to you 2 things, but there could be very many more. So I would like the IBA to take the initiative to plan for the next 25 years as to how you're going to be the most effective catalyst, which you have proven during the pandemic. And therefore, you have it in you to be able to plan for the next 25 years. What are the areas in which you would want to expand? Not just your brick and mortar. How digitized are you? Is digital, how do I say this? Are you digital savvy? Is your bank digital savvy? Are your staff digital savvy? I don't want to use the word technology. It is technology. But are you all comfortable in being a digital institution? How much of training goes in for this? Now, each of us have created our own empires, maybe. Each of us have our own system, digital system, but that doesn't talk with the next one. After all of you are serving this one country, either within the land or outside. Do your systems talk to each other? Or a customer, for instance, who has an account in A bank, for some reason has to function or do some business with B bank, has to recreate it all. And it will be such a missed opportunity if we are sitting and thinking that I've created my own, I am happy. Whereas the fellow who deals with you is the one who feels how many walls are there between banks. So I would think the IBA should plan to make sure all systems in all banks, which is private or public, for the purposes of the customer. I'm not asking you to open up the whole arena. For the purposes of the customer, should make systems talk to each other. Now, in a way, account aggregator business has shown us that with the consent of the customer, you are able to provide services and there are no digital encroachment into his privacy. So why is it that we wouldn't be able to do it for other things in the bank? So that is one of the things I would think for the Amrit Kal, you should be a lot more digital savvy. Also the opportunity that technology gives you over and above having these systems which speak to each other. Your efficiencies, detecting fraud, tracking wrong money going into wrong causes, which is, I think, based on the FATF, is a mandatory thing that all of us follow, ministry, banks. Detecting unusual transactions, alerting yourself, alerting the government. Use of Web3, artificial intelligence, data analysis, deep dive into data. All these will have to have some thought processes and some coordination through the IBA, not so much each bank for itself. So use of the Web3, use of artificial intelligence, I would think will be an immediate priority I expect of the banks. Because otherwise, we are all still probably at some level of digital use, but not really as much as to detect fraud, as to have an early warning sign, put in certain kind of embedded matters into it so that you're able to get yourself alerted when something goes wrong. So if I'm talking so much about cyber, so much about digital infusion into your banking functioning, the natural corollary would be cyber protection. Are you all geared to have adequate firewalls? Are you all covering yourself enough so that there is no major hacking or a black swan event which leads to a system getting agitated? So ensure that you have enough cyber protection and periodic drills to see that there are no loopholes which you have left without attending to. So you need to have the CertFin people engaged quite often and ensure that they are giving you all the assistance to keep yourself cyber protected. I'll come to something which bothers me in the parliament quite a lot. I think it's important, I'm talking about the public sector banks, but to an extent even the private sector probably will have issues about it. When you have staff in regions who do not talk the local language, when you have at the customer end, at the branch level, staff who don't talk the regional language and who are patriotic enough to say, hey, you don't talk Hindi? No good, you're no Indian. And I'm quoting this because I'm probably not putting it into an inverted comma situation, but it has actually happened. I think it doesn't do any good for business. We cannot afford to have staff who don't speak local language and who demand from citizens that they speak in a particular language. Unless they do it, they're not even Indians, need not be your approach. You're there for doing business. You're not there to cultivate certain value system into the citizen, except that when it comes to the banking, of course, he has to be prompt in paying your interest. He'll have to promptly service your loans. He'll have to deal with you in such a way that he frankly comes and tells you what's his security worth and all that. But other than that, if you are there sitting and saying, hey, I can't understand you, you go away, you're not there for it. I honestly, at this juncture, tell you, please review the kind of people who are getting posted in branch levels. If you have a problem about mixing and matching staff who can speak a local language and you have somebody in that region who can't speak, keep him at the back door, but he shouldn't be dealing with the customers then. I hope we don't create newer problems for ourselves, and therefore I've had this discussion with you all earlier. Your recruitments will now have to have a lot more sensible ways of recruiting people. If you need X number of people in a particular region, make sure you recruit X plus some more so that that region will require that many number of people who can speak that language. I underline the importance of this because of the diversity of this country. And banking sector also is one area in which constantly there are newer people coming in, employment is happening, and if employment and recruitments are happening, it is possible for you to show how inclusivity can be brought in. Inclusivity just doesn't stop with you lending loans to everybody and therefore we are inclusive. Show it in your staff. Show it in the way in which your staff speak to the customers. Or else I can't see what's the difference. What is the difficulty in learning a language? I mean, I'm from the south. Whatever I do try to learn a bit of Hindi, however poor it may be in my delivery, I learn it. As long as my karma bhubi is here, I have to learn the language of that area. And I can't understand how IBA can entertain officers who get posted in non-Hindi areas who don't speak that language. What is wrong in acquiring a language? You are after all serving those customers. If you don't get a person from that area and you post somebody, make sure that that somebody speaks that area's language. He can't just arrogate to himself that if the customer doesn't understand his language, be damned with him. I speak in strong words on this because that's the nature of banking. You are dealing with people, you may as well respect them and their language. I'd also draw the attention of all the members of the IBA that some parts of the country, even today, do not have adequate coverage of banks. And when I say banks, I'm not insisting on brick and mortar. I know that exercise is already over. You have arrived at a certain number of areas where there are no brick and mortar branches, which you may want to provide, and you've taken a call on that. I'm not interfering in that. But if there is a way in which you can provide ATMs, or even better, where you can afford to have more business correspondents. And in that, I would think I've come across quite a number of business correspondents who are women who are doing brilliantly well. I would like a positive and affirmative bias here. The more business correspondents are women, the better for your business. Show your positive prejudice in this. Get more business correspondents, get more women business correspondents. And the regions which have not had enough coverage of banks and where it is possible to bring in digital technology, particularly the Northeast, I was glad to see, and I'm naming the bank, it's not to say others are not doing it, I was glad to see Axis. I was glad to see some public sector banks also making quite a few inroads in the northeastern area. Northeast has a particular difficulty of access, physical access. So if you went by your usual 5-kilometer radius touch point, or if you went by a certain population size for a branch, Northeast will not get one branch. Or the 5-kilometer touch radius test that you do will also not be effective. So you may have to look at Northeast with a bit of a special treatment because they need the banks there. It is all full of bustling activity, economic activity. We need financial inclusion for that area as well. So largely in this meeting, with a little expectation from the banking area, I request that you look at strategies for the next 25 years, you look at digital approach immediately, you look at systems which talk to one another also. You also look at newer ways of providing portfolios for younger population. Don't miss out that the 25 years will be done only with your support. The more old-fashioned we sit around, not undermining the prudential norms intact. If you sit thinking the business will come to you, no, business will not come to you. People are very good nowadays through their phones accessing that particular bank or that particular institution which is going to be accessible to you. As you did earlier, when I say earlier, about 30, 40 years ago, when door-to-door campaigning for accounts, I do, as a child, I had few people in my house who were all in the banking area, the kind of deposit mobilization, some word like that was used. You went door-to-door to do deposit mobilization. Now you don't need to do that. If you're able to keep yourself available through all the digital phone app-based systems, you're available for everybody. So those kind of out-of-the-box thinking, which are in line with today's India's expectations, are things which you need to plan. Keep your norms intact, but think of ways in which you can reach out. The role of private sector banks is equally important. I would want them to keep their dynamism up. There are certain areas in which both the private and the public sector banks will have to look at, and that is the insurance coverage under the government schemes. Jan Dhan accounts are there, but Atal Bima Yojana, Suraksha Bima Yojana, we still need all of you all to participate. Maximum saturation has to be reached in all of them. I know it is a public sector bank which largely carry forward the government's schemes and so on, whether it is Mudra, but I know other private banks are also doing it. But one last call that I'd like to put before the IBA today, and for those of you who are going to wear the thinking hat on behalf of your banks, regional rural banks will have to have some attention given. I think once earlier when we met, I had voiced it. Rural banks need support for digitization. They need digital technology. They need to be upgraded in terms of the systems that they have. They need a lot more assistance in terms of getting all accounts into digital platforms. Account aggregators will also have to go to them. So some more attention by the sponsoring banks for the regional rural banks would help. There's so much and more happening because of the agricultural infrastructure fund that government has created. We need that to be better reached out through the RRBs. So ensure that the RRBs get the support of the sponsor banks, and slowly work might even expand to strengthen the cooperatives, but that's a bit later. But for now, I would want you to immediately attend to the RRBs as well. So thank you for giving me this opportunity. Once again, I appreciate the service done during pandemic. I also appreciate the efforts which are being put through during post-pandemic revival-based efforts, but it's not all over yet. This year, particularly this year, during the festival, immediately after the festival, there will be a lot of interest. There is indication that people are willing to spend money, people are willing to travel, people are wanting to go to different destinations, businesses are wanting to invest additionally, capacities to be expanded. All these are being talked about. If those will have to materialize, it is through you. You will have to keep yourself available and ready for ensuring that the requirements, credit requirements, are met and met in time without much of a stress on diligence and compliance. You should facilitate the customer to ensure that he thinks, oh, this bank is fairly, easy, they're comfortable with me, I'm willing to do the whatever compliances. So it's all happening. That energy of positivity should go out. There was a time when you were very strong and very powerful in stating the concerns that you had, and that I remember in 2019. Whether it is because of the stress the staff had in their minds, whether they're going to be pursued by the CBI, whether CVC is going to come after them, whether the decisions are going to be questioned by the CAG and so on. Those days are gone. You're on a better platform now. You're in a better position now. If that could be effectively communicated to the authorities, to the government, saying we're all scared, we're frozen, we don't want to take a decision. You were very effective in that, weren't you? Weren't you very effective in that? They have been addressed now. Equally now, I want you to be effective in saying we are ready for good business. We are ready now to deal with customers. Please come. We want to serve you. Give us a call. We are willing to come and talk business with you. You be proactive. You're very effective when you want to convey a thought. I would want you to convey the thought to the customers that you are ready for them and you will meet them wherever they want and do business with them. Of course, you'll be conscious of keeping your own norms intact. Nobody's going to undermine that. So, good wishes. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. Next 25 years is in your hands. Thank you very much.